is the Dumball Rally, the world's ultimate intercontinental driving adventure. Over 100 madcap motorists take cars that have seen better days.
If you're very lucky, you get one that's got some tread on the tyres.
And drive them as far as they can in just 1 week.
We were tempted to drive it home, but we couldn't afford the fuel. It's done at least a tank a day.
All to raise awareness and funds for the Teenage Cancer Trust.
It's all for a fantastic cause.
Each team takes an old banger of their choice, pimps it up and then drives it to a far-flung place.
I declare Odessa open to Dumball.
Now in its 10th year, the Dumball Banger Rally has covered over 11,500 miles. They've conquered Europe.
We're going to Budapest today.
Russia.
Bloody cows.
And India.
So this is like driving in Sicily, Istanbul and Kosovo all together.
Bringing chaos and carnage wherever they go. And now, we're going to take a look back at some of the daftest moments from the rally's 10-year history. Welcome to the Dumball Rally, dumbest of the dumb. The Dumball Rally is a world-famous fancy dress festival on wheels, bringing madness and mayhem to unsuspecting towns and villages around the world. Wherever the convoy pitches up, you can be sure the locals get roped into the stupidity, whether they like it or not. Every day, the Dumballers are set a daft challenge. And back in 2012, as the rally drove through Italy, they were tasked to try and kiss a local.
Should we now apologise to the local for kissing his missus? Perhaps.
Unsurprisingly, every single Dumballer embraced the challenge, making stops all down the East Coast to pucker up. But one team, dumb from above, found a clever way of getting up close and personal with the locals without having to pull over. I really wouldn't recommend you try this at home.
Go, go, go! In a bit further! Yeah!
As the teams on the Eastern European Rally drove through the Swiss Alps, it seemed appropriate to set them a challenge the locals would appreciate. A spot of yodeling. Yodelay, hee-hoo.
Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay. 1, 2, 3. Yodelay!
But their performances obviously weren't as authentic as mine. They picked up a few mixed reactions from the locals.
And you've done yodelling with cows?
Yes, yodelling with cows.
Keep yodelling! Any yodelling taking place?
We did do quite a bit of yodelling actually in the cable car. It was the only place we could guarantee the locals wouldn't run away.
But Dumballers don't just invade local towns. Sometimes the locals were invited into the Dumballers' cars, and in Macedonia, the teams were challenged to pick up hitchhikers, with points awarded for the longest distance travelled.
Hitchhiker, hitchhiker, hitchhiker.
How do you say hello?
Привет.
Привет.
Русский, Russian.
That's Russian. You speak Russian.
All the teams were squeezing extra passengers into their already fully laden cars. But the Yellow Squadron found a passenger who would earn them some serious points.
I'm Amy. Hi, Bina. Hi, Bina. I'm Claire. Where do you want us to take you to? Okay.
The student wanted a lift 80 miles to the capital.
The further we take you, the more points we get. So thank you.
And after an 80-mile journey, the Yellow Squadron were confident they'd won the day's challenge. Just look at how happy they were. The Dumball Rally has travelled through some 40 countries, each with its own customs and languages. So you'd think the participants might have prepared in some way by learning some basic phrases. However, as these next clips will demonstrate, when mixing with locals, one can easily come unstuck when they hit the language barrier. Back in 2007, the teams also had to try and get the locals into their cars, but this time it specifically had to be a pensioner. Never shy of a quest, the Blue Squadron were the first to attempt it.
No cigarettes? No for me.
But getting the old geezer to sit in the car proved a little challenging.
Lee, just sit down, like, with your legs out to show him what to do.
Sit here. Just so what you... Just quickly.
Desperate for the point, they had to turn to a universal language. Yes, money talks.
All right, bye-bye.
We just used that old man for a small piece of our own entertainment and gave him 30p.
He had no idea what was going on.
The teams also ran into problems with language when they were travelling through India. Matt from the Red Squadron thought he'd negotiated a rather good deal on diesel for all of the cars.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm the dealer of this pump.
Oh, you are the
owner, yeah.
You are the owner. This
Owner.
is the man. This is the manager, everybody.
This is what?
There's a manager at the pump. He's going to give us a special discount.
Hi.
He said because it's for charity, the diesel with no pay.
Okay.
No pay for diesel. Okay. Okay. We have it on camera.
Supply that free.
That's
You
telling
know.
everybody. Yeah.
We are investing the
for
money.
charity. Thank you very much, sir. You're doing a great thing. That's really good of you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
But it turned out to be too good to be true.
Free diesel for charity.
Government supplying the money only, not
Government
free.
supply.
Not free.
Oh.
You're going bathroom free, drinking water free.
This is where the phrase Indian giver comes from.
You have water?
You think you've got something and then they don't.
Sadly for the teams, they had to pay up.
Hello, my friends.
One of the rarest languages on the planet is known as footy. It's spoken in parts of Romania where farmers communicate to each other, solely using the language of retired English footballers.
Very good.
Beckham, Alan Ball, Bobby Charlton, Bobby Moore,
George Best.
George Best.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much.
And deceased princesses.
Princess Diana.
Either that or this man thought the Dumballers were celebrities. And with everybody very confused, the Dumballers left him to get back to his farming and hit the road. The Dumball Rally has covered 11,500 miles in its 10-year history. Unfortunately, there's never been a major accident. However, there have been some minor pranks. Most of those have been accidental. Some of them, well, they've been blatantly intentional. When you're travelling thousands of miles on very little sleep, accidents are almost inevitable. And further along the Eastern European rally, the leaders of the Red Squadron had a close encounter with a dog.
Just a slow bit. Slow taking. We managed to just avoid a dog now. The car took quite a hit though, but luckily Rich was on his metal and managed to just swerve to avoid. And he just managed to slice half our car up on the side.
With the crash exposing some sharp edges on the car, the teams had to try and mend it using just gaffer tape and some jungle foliage to hide the damage.
The tree will distract us from the damage.
In fact, it became an opportunity to spruce up the car's bonnet too.
I've got some Velcro cable tied.
That guy could work in a florist with those skills.
Much better, guys. That's a real improvement. Real improvement.
Job done, the new-look jungleism car was ready to lead the convoy into Skopje. That's if anyone could spot it.
Guys, we are go. Saddle up.
To fight the inevitable boredom caused by driving hundreds of miles, the teams invented a dangerous little game.
I'm afraid it appears we've had a crash.
The two highly competitive cricket-themed cars decided to see how many times they could crash into one another.
I am going to spend most of the time crashing into these guys, so just go with it.
What smart cookies. And further down the Indian highway, Team If There's Grass on the Wicket spotted an opportunity to get their own back on their arch enemies.
They just banged their doors into us. We've just nearly had a crash and we're going down the equivalent of the M1 motorway.
But it was the fancy fools that had the last word.
Whoa. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we just had a major accident. But it was fine. Bloody curb just jumped out and bit us.
Coming up, car concerns.
I think we should have on full throttle the entire time.
Confusion.
We're definitely not going to get across there.
And cretins.
You've hit the fuel pump. It's open like a can of sardines.
Welcome back to the Dumball Rally, dumbest of the dumb. We're taking a look back at some of the daftest moments in this rally's illustrious history. And if there's one thing I've learnt, it's that Dumballers and directions don't really mix. Although they do both begin with a D.
Close to the end of the Indian Rally, the Blue Squadron decided to take a more scenic route for the day, through a farming village.
Seagulls have got a delightful noise coming from their car, which we know is just a hay round our drive shaft.
But it was a decision they instantly started to regret when they discovered that the roads were being used to thrash hay.
Drive through those piles of hay, or were we meant to drive round them? Because
It didn't really leave us much space to drive round them.
hey guys, got some of your hay.
Heads up when you have finished de-haying your cars. We're just doing it ourselves.
To avoid having to drive through more hay, the team managed to find an alternative route, which meant crossing a river. But it wasn't long before they encountered another problem.
Bit of an issue, the bridge is not finished. Our sat-nav thinks all these roads are finished.
Well, it
They're
is.
not.
What's unfinished about this bit? This road's perfect.
If you get across onto the train track over there.
You're suggesting us driving on a train track?
That's very Back to the Future.
We've been here for a while. I've not seen a train go past.
This is not a viable option. Come on, let's go.
Getting lost is basically something that is celebrated on the Dumball. Back on the very first day of the 2012 Eastern European Rally, the teams didn't get lost per se, but they'd managed to run into problems before they even set foot in a foreign country.
Most of the guys have missed their slot on the Eurotunnel and they've been pushed to the back of the queue, which means they're not going to get here maybe until midnight.
I'd made it to France ahead of all the Dumball cars and was waiting to welcome them in Reims, but I had a very long, perilous wait ahead of me.
It's 1:45 in the morning.
I was losing my mind waiting for the cars, but suddenly a BMW that looked and sounded like a dog led the convoy into the hotel car park.
These are warriors of the road. Ah, good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well.
The hair's all stayed on?
I know, done very well.
Eurostars, how are you? Forget how big its buses are inside. Look at the size of it. It is the size of a train. Look. Yeah. Shh, it's gone 2 in the morning. There'll be an old woman asleep in there going mental. Oh, stroke it. It's such a strokeable car. Hello, you all right? How's the car?
Put the nuts while she's thirsty, I'll tell you that.
Yeah?
We've had to pull on
Well, you're fully laden. Look at the back suspension.
yeah. Look at that.
In 2012, as the rally arrived in Chisinau, Moldova, after an already long day of driving, somehow the Red Squadron managed to get lost, getting back to the hotel.
The problem is we relied on the sat-nav, and that didn't actually take us where we needed to go, so we're doing the old-fashioned way of asking people as we go along to tell us the way.
It was up to James from Team Jungleism to take charge and lead the Red convoy, but they were going round in circles.
He doesn't like stress. He can't cope under the pressure of it all. He hates it.
Doesn't feel right, guys.
Suddenly, James had a brainwave. Find a taxi driver who knows where he's going and pay him to take you there. Of course.
That's okay, these cars follow you.
Turn around again, sorry, because we're going to follow this taxi in. So turn around and then follow the taxi. No, the boat is stuck. It's all okay. We're all good. We're all good. This guy will definitely get us there.
And finally, the Red Squadron made it back to the hotel.
It's fair to say that on the Dumball Rally there is a huge quantity of hijinks and general larking about, but it's not always the rally participants that are the badly behaved ones. Hence the need to introduce this next series of clips.
If you're going to take cars worth less than £500 and drive them over 1,000 miles, you should at least know what you're doing when it inevitably breaks down. Sadly, Team Ice White had no clue when they were faced with a breakdown as they were driving to Istanbul.
Temperature gauge went to red.
Maxed. And it was a case of pull over now, otherwise the whole car's just going to go.
It's going to blow.
We've been having problems with the radiator all the way along, but it was just minor. It was minor drippage, and now we're talking serious issues now, I think.
Somewhat ironically, Team Ice White's car had seriously overheated. Fortunately, though, a bloke called Paul from another team actually knew how to fix a car.
It's a dead one.
Not dead, it just might be warped.
That gauge's back down to 0 now, that's good news. Let's go.
I'm surprised with all these cars that there's not a lot of people who don't know anything about cars.
Yeah, we really haven't got a clue.
I can fill up the petrol.
You can fill up the petrol?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it. That is...
We put some oil, we can put oil in.
Yeah.
And top the water up. Very educational, this holiday.
It is. I'm going to go back and actually start looking after my car at home and maybe give it its first oil change in 2 years.
With the car cooled down and filled with something called water, the Ice White's car could live another day. Back in 2012, with a 500-mile drive ahead of them, Team Adventure Headwear were keen to get on the road, so they decided to take a shortcut out of the car park.
We need some more people.
Completely trashing their car. Well done, guys. They had managed to get their car beached on a curb.
Ready?
You followed.
Take.
In their haste, they'd done some serious damage to the underside of their vehicle.
That's fuel or brake fluid.
Whose idea was it to go off there?
They needed to get the problem sorted quickly, so I volunteered to go under there and check out the damage.
I trust it now.
At all times.
The diagnosis was bad.
OK, well, that's the fuel pump. So you've hit the fuel pump. You've really hit the fuel pump. It's open like a can of sardines.
And suddenly the laughing stopped. But fortunately, my diagnosis had been wrong. It was actually the fuel filter, a part that the car can function without.
If you could work out what the French for fuel filter is...
Luckily, a cross-dressing sailor offered to lend me a hand.
Stop looking at my bloody skirt, will you?
Can you get it out your end? Oh. Another Dumball. We've got it.
With no time to look for a new filter, we replaced it with some rubber piping held together with gaffer tape. But would it work?
On there, and then be happy. Let's go. Well.
Of course it ruddy would. On the 2016 rally in India, as the Red Squadron entered the final 20 kilometres of their 2,200 kilometre journey, they were also plagued with problems.
Can we still pull over? We want to have a little look in the bonnet, please.
This time the throttle cable that controlled the accelerator came loose. With no support vehicle in sight, the base bandits had to attempt to fix the problem themselves.
That is not what we wanted. The bolt fell on the floor.
But at the end of a long week, tempers were frayed.
Chris, give me the bolt. Stop showing me photos.
Fortunately, Jokers Matt and Dave were there to keep the morale high.
There's a bit of, he just obviously wants you to do it a little bit sexily, look, obviously.
A bit crackish.
There we go, yeah.
I think we may have spotted the problem.
Now you know why we're not crack addicts. I reckon we're about 26 kilometres.
I happen to say you had a
So, limping along at this speed, I reckon we'll be there by Tuesday. We stick together, we go in together, so we'll get it fixed. Thank you very much.
Onward we march! Onward we roll! Onward we crawl!
But just 2 kilometres further on, they had to stop again.
I think we should have it on full throttle the entire time. And he can just slip the out of the clutch.
Desperate to get to the end, the other team members had to resort to pushing the wounded base bandits car over the finish line.
We are flower boys, we are flowers.
And eventually, the Red Squadron limped home.
Come on! Come on!
So that's it from this episode of Dumbest to the Dumb. I've been Johnny Smith. Ta-ra.
Next time, squeezing.
Well done. Well done.
Surprises.
It's a car! It's a car! It's a car!
And celebrations.